Did you know? There are dishes so intimidating that just mentioning their names makes more than 90% of people in the world want to surrender unconditionally. These foods don't just challenge your taste buds, they challenge your nerves, and only those who are truly fearless dare to try them. Today, we'll explore the processes behind some of the most bizarre dishes on the planet, where cuisine breaks free from familiar boundaries and steps into an entirely different realm, where logic collapses, science freezes, and every limit is pushed. This is a journey into a world where every flavor is a genuine shock. But make sure you've got a mask, a toilet nearby, and a bit of courage. Because trust me, you're going to need all of it. Just a thin slice, yet it can contain more than 1,000 wriggling larvae. Not feces. Today, we're talking about Casu Marzu, a cheese born from the digestive and excretory process of living maggots. To create Casu Marzu, the people of Sardinia start with traditional pecorino cheese, made from sheep's milk. Right after milking, the milk is gently heated and kept at about 36 degrees Celsius. Once it reaches the ideal temperature, the cheesemaker adds rennet and waits about 40 minutes for the milk to coagulate into a uniform mass. This mass is then cut into small pieces with a special tool, breaking its structure down until a fine curd is obtained. The curds are strained through a basket, reheated, and then transferred into molds to shape the fresh cheese. The freshly molded cheese is soaked in brine and then aged for several months to develop the characteristic pecorino flavor. Once it reaches a certain level of maturity, the cheese wheels are placed in naturally suitable, well-ventilated environments. This setting attracts the Pyophila caseae fly, which lays its eggs there. When the larvae hatch, they begin feeding on the cheese, releasing natural enzymes that break down the internal structure and create the soft, pungent, infamous filling known as Casu Marzu. When the Casu Marzu is finally formed, another challenge appears. The larvae are still alive inside the cheese. What's remarkable is that they can survive the human digestive system despite the stomach's harsh acidity, potentially causing dangerous issues such as vomiting. And that's not all. These tiny maggots can jump up to 15 centimeters. So when eating the cheese, Sardinians often wear glasses or cover their eyes to avoid any unexpected accidents. Although banned from commercial sale by a 1962 law, the dish has never disappeared. In Sardinia, people still consider it part of their culinary heritage, so much so that authorities often look the other way, allowing the tradition to persist along with the intense, unmistakable flavor of one of Italy's most extraordinary cheeses. In 1958, Japan was forced to ban fugu preparation in many regions due to the high number of fatalities. Ironically, a single small pufferfish can kill up to 30 people with a toxin 1,200 times stronger than cyanide. Yet even that isn't enough to stop diners who are captivated by the unique flavor that only fugu can offer. Because of the immense risks involved in eating it, the preparation of pufferfish is carried out with near absolute precision. When the fish has been cleaned, the chef begins with a small incision behind the head to immobilize it, ensuring the rest of the process is smooth and exact. Next, the sharp fins are carefully removed for use in traditional dishes. The mouth is trimmed as well to eliminate toxins present in the salivary glands and to prevent any unexpected reaction during handling. Only after all these preparations are complete does the true dissection begin. Inside a pufferfish lie 4 areas with extremely high toxin concentrations: the liver, ovaries, intestines, and skin. Removing them requires precision akin to microsurgery. Every cut must be at the correct point, with the correct pressure, and performed in a strict sequence that allows no deviation. All internal organs are then sealed and disposed of as hazardous material, a testament to the profession's rigor. When the final fillet is prepared, the chef moves on to the most artistic stage, slicing sashimi. The translucent, paper-thin pieces are arranged into the shape of a chrysanthemum, a symbol of purity and a tribute to the chef's refined technique. Enjoying fugu is not merely about taste, but about appreciating the precision, focus, and tradition embodied in each slice. Beyond sashimi, pufferfish is prepared in many other bold ways. In Korea, the meat is stir-fried in a fiery red sauce. In Japan, fugu tempura becomes light and delicate, with a crisp coating that reveals the firm white flesh inside. Farewell to the dangerous pufferfish processing lines. We now step into a completely different world, one where one of the most expensive and extraordinary coffees on the planet is created from the droppings of a civet. Have you ever wondered why people still confidently drink civet coffee, even though it originates from the digestive tract of an animal? The reason lies in a production process far cleaner than most would imagine. Civets select only the ripest coffee cherries, what farmers call naturally hand-picked fruits, which make up less than 10% of an entire plantation. When swallowed, the coffee beans aren't mixed with waste. Instead, they are exposed only to digestive enzymes, creating a unique fermentation process that no modern technology can replicate. Each morning, workers collect the civet droppings and hand-separate the intact beans before transferring them into large water tanks for repeated washing. The beans are stirred thoroughly to remove the biological mucilage, dirt, and microorganisms, then disinfected and left to drain. Only the beans that pass this strict cleaning process are roasted in small roasting machines, kept consistently between 180 to 220 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes. This step demands absolute precision. Even minor changes in temperature or airflow can completely alter the signature aroma. Compared to regular coffee, civet beans have already undergone natural fermentation inside the civet's body, altering their protein and sugar structures. This allows the beans to roast evenly from the core outward, reducing harshness and producing a distinctive sweet aftertaste. When the beans reach the perfect crack point, they are rapidly cooled and moved into specialized grinders. Thanks to the softened structure created by enzymatic action, the beans grind more smoothly, producing fine, fluffy coffee powder that ensures maximum flavor extraction. It is this rarity, combined with such meticulous processing techniques, that drives the price of civet coffee to $800 to $2,500 USD per kilogram, earning its status as one of the most expensive coffees in the world. We now move on to the production line of natto, the fermented soybean dish known as Japan's legendary warrior of aroma, boasting a history of more than 1,000 years. The journey begins with tiny soybeans, yet the selection standards are surprisingly strict. Only about 15% of the harvested beans are round, uniform, and rich enough in protein to qualify. Their small size helps them absorb heat quickly and allows bacteria to penetrate more easily, creating natto's iconic, sticky texture. After selection, the beans enter an industrial washing system, where swirling water at pressures reaching 120 liters per minute and continuous air bubbles scrub away dirt and dried skin. Once thoroughly cleaned, the beans are soaked and transferred to a high-pressure steamer at around 120 degrees Celsius, softening the protein layers in preparation for fermentation. While the beans are still hot, workers perform the most crucial step, inoculating them with natto culture. The starter containing Bacillus subtilis var natto is sprayed through an ultra-fine nozzle, coating every bean in less than 3 seconds, ensuring the bacteria latch on immediately. The beans are then moved into a fermentation chamber, maintained at 40 degrees Celsius, the ideal temperature for bacterial activity. Here, the microbes quietly break down proteins and create polyglutamic acid, the substance that gives natto its ability to stretch into strands up to 1 meter long. After 18 to 20 hours, once the batch reaches peak fermentation, it is sent directly to the packaging line, where foam trays glide along the conveyor belt. A precision dispenser drops the perfect portion of warm, fluffy natto into each tray. Next, a packet of shoyu sauce is automatically added, completing the flavor profile. Within seconds, the trays are sealed tightly and ready to leave the production line. For natto lovers, this is a uniquely bold, savory, deeply traditional delicacy. But for first-timers, this fermented soybean dish can be a true aroma challenge that tests their courage at first encounter. Unlike the rest of the world, there is a dish for which clean isn't a standard. It is, in fact, the enemy. That dish is Sweden's infamous fermented herring, Surströmming, whose smell is often described as a blend of rotting meat, dirty diapers, and blue cheese. Along the coastal factories of Northern Europe, the journey of Surströmming begins the moment the herring is pulled from the water. On the deck, instead of sending the fish into a standard cleaning process like other seafood, the crew sprinkles them with a thin layer of coarse salt. The salt level is only about 6 to 8%, just enough to keep the fish slightly firm and prevent early spoilage, yet low enough to leave breathing room for lactic acid bacteria, the key players in the upcoming fermentation. Once the catch arrives at the processing plant, the herring is handled in a way that almost completely defies conventional food production. Instead of removing the internal organs, the workers make a small incision near the gills. A portion of the fish's natural enzymes is intentionally left inside, just enough to jumpstart fermentation when the herring is submerged in a mild brine. Here, massive fermentation tanks act as artificial stomachs, maintaining a steady temperature of 15 to 18 degrees Celsius for 6 to 8 weeks. Then comes the boldest step. The fish is canned while still alive in its microbial environment. No cooking, no sterilizing, just sealed steel cans, leaving the rest of the transformation to time. In the months that follow, the cans begin to bulge as gases build up inside, turning each one into a mini fermentation chamber that completes the dish's notorious flavor. Fish is a beloved food for billions of people around the world, but hakkarl is a rare exception. This Icelandic dish comes from a type of fish that not only contains natural toxins, but also carries a smell strikingly similar to urine. Hakkarl is made from the Greenland shark, the longest living shark species on Earth, reaching 5 to 7 meters in length and drifting slowly through icy waters. Its flesh contains extremely high levels of urea, TMAO, and trimethylamine oxide. And yes, urea is the same compound found in urine, which is why raw Greenland shark meat has an intense ammonia-like stench. Because it cannot be eaten directly, Icelanders were forced to develop a fermentation method to transform this dangerous flesh into the traditional delicacy known as hakkarl. Once the shark is brought ashore, the body is cleaned and cut into large chunks. In the old days, the meat was buried in the ground and pressed with stones for several months so that the toxic liquids could drain out while enzymes worked. Today, the process is replaced with controlled fermentation in sealed wooden crates, allowing for much more consistent results. When fermentation reaches the ideal stage, the meat is hung outdoors in Arctic winds to dry naturally. The outer layer gradually darkens while the inside becomes firm and white. After the brown crust is trimmed away, the remaining white flesh becomes hakkarl, a powerful acquired taste dish traditionally enjoyed alongside a shot of brennivin. Every year, millions of gingerbread house kits are produced on industrial assembly lines, becoming iconic holiday treats with their golden crispy cookie walls, colorful candies, and the warm ginger aroma of Christmas. The process begins in giant mixing tanks where flour, brown sugar, molasses, butter, and ground ginger are precisely measured and blended before moving to the kneading machine, forming a uniform dough block weighing nearly 200 kilograms per batch. This dough then passes through a high-pressure steel roller system, pressed thin to just 6 to 8 millimeters to ensure a perfectly flat surface for cutting. While the dough is still soft, patterned rollers stamp doors, roofs, and decorative details directly onto the sheet. Once baked to a crisp texture, the panels become as sturdy as miniature bricks, ready for assembly. The wall and roof pieces are bonded together with royal icing, a mixture of egg whites and powdered sugar that bakers often call the Christmas epoxy glue for its incredible sticking power. Finally, candies, sprinkles, and icing details are added to complete a lively gingerbread house that looks just like a tiny winter scene. And as soon as the gingerbread house production comes to an end, the assembly line immediately shifts its rhythm to another Christmas icon, the candy cane. The journey of crafting this legendary treat begins with a step that seems simple, but actually determines the entire quality: mixing and cooking the sugar. Sugar, glucose, and syrup are poured into large kettles, heated, and continuously stirred until the mixture becomes thick, uniform, and crystal clear like hot honey. Once it reaches the ideal consistency, the syrup is poured onto cooling tables or steel conveyor belts, where technicians or machinery stretch and fold it repeatedly to develop the perfect elasticity and airy texture. At this stage, the candy mass is divided into two portions, one left in its natural white color, and the other mixed with just 0.3–0.5% coloring to achieve its signature red hue. The two masses are placed side by side and fed into a high-temperature rolling and pulling system. Under continuous pressure, the red and white layers are compressed together without blending, forming perfectly straight stripes. As the combined candy block moves through the twisting machine, the rotating shaft gently spirals the strip into a long cylinder, gradually thinning it down to the width of a pencil. This is when the iconic red and white swirl becomes the most vivid. Finally, the candy rope enters a high-speed cutter, sliced into segments about 12 to 15 centimeters long. While still soft, each piece is bent by the conveyor system to form the distinctive hook shape of a candy cane before being fully cooled to lock the form in place. Say goodbye to the soft, twisted candy ropes. We're stepping into the crispy world of Lay's, where every potato is carefully selected and processed before becoming part of the more than 200 million chips produced each day. Every potato used for Lay's goes through a streamlined yet almost perfectly precise process. After being washed and sorted, the potatoes enter a specialized peeling machine. Inside the rotating drum, the surface of each potato rubs continuously against the chamber walls, causing the skin to come off within seconds, while strong water jets wash away any remaining impurities, leaving behind smooth, flawless potatoes ready for slicing. Immediately afterward, the potatoes are transferred to a high-speed slicer. A set of spinning disc blades applies gentle pressure to each potato, producing slices just 1.5 millimeters thick, a measurement Lay's has standardized after years of optimization to ensure every chip fries quickly, cooks evenly, and achieves its signature crispness. From the high-speed blades, the process shifts into a stage of precise heat control. The potato slices enter a vat of refined oil, kept at a stable 175 degrees Celsius, and are fried for about 3 minutes to develop a uniform golden crunch. The oil is continuously filtered, allowing the system to operate 24/7 and process tons of potatoes per day while maintaining consistency. Thanks to this closed-loop system, Lay's preserves its iconic, thin, light, crispy quality on a global scale. If Lay's is a race against time, Hershey is an art of structural control. Every year, the Hershey Company produces more than 500,000 tons of chocolate, fueling a worldwide wave of sweetness. The journey of a Hershey's Kiss begins immediately after the tempering stage, when the chocolate reaches its perfect smoothness and glossy finish. The liquid mixture is fed into a molding machine, dropping onto the conveyor in the signature little kiss motion, the very origin of the name Kisses. From there, the chocolates enter an almost endless cooling tunnel, where the stable temperature allows each piece to solidify evenly. Those that meet the quality standard are wrapped in foil, fitted with the iconic paper plume, and sent along a spiral conveyor toward the automatic weighing section. Alongside the Kisses line, the Hershey bar production system runs continuously with preheated molds ready to receive streams of liquid chocolate with absolute precision. The molds then move into a tightly controlled cooling chamber that ensures each bar sets quickly while remaining silky smooth. Once fully cooled, the machine flexes the molds gently to release the bars, then flips them over to drop the finished pieces onto the packaging conveyor. Every year, billions of ice creams are produced in modern factories, meeting the cooling cravings of millions worldwide, becoming one of the most iconic products in the frozen dessert industry. The journey of a batch begins in giant mixing tanks, where fresh milk, heavy cream, sugar, and flavorings are blended in precise proportions. The mixture is homogenized to break down fat particles, creating a silky smooth texture, then pasteurized at 80 to 85 degrees Celsius and rapidly cooled. Finally, the ice cream is aged for several hours to allow the ingredients to meld, stabilize the texture, and enhance creaminess, preparing it for the next stages on the production line. Once ready, the mixture is pumped into the flash freezing machine, the heart of every ice cream factory, where air is whipped in at precise ratios to create fluffiness, while ultra-fast freezing produces the signature smooth structure. This is also the stage when chocolate, syrups, almonds, or cookie crumbs are added at the end to avoid being crushed. From here, the ice cream is shaped into bars, cones, or tubs, then passed through deep freeze tunnels at 40 degrees Celsius to lock in the structure, ensuring that by the time it reaches consumers, every spoonful is creamy, rich, and full of original flavor. It's this meticulous process that allows famous brands like Häagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's, and Baskin-Robbins to deliver a perfectly consistent taste experience, cementing their status as icons in the global ice cream industry. They may look like nothing more than puffed corn pieces, but they've built a snack empire worth more than $20 billion. This is the legendary story of Cheetos, the orange cheese king that has captivated the world for nearly a century. The journey of Cheetos begins in industrial corn dryers, where kernels are dehydrated to the ideal moisture level before being milled into fine cornmeal with precisely controlled particle size. Immediately after, the meal is transferred into CableV's automated dosing system, where moisture is adjusted to 15 to 20% and mixed with the brand's proprietary formula to reach the perfect condition for the next stage. The conditioned dough is then fed into the Wenger X85 extruder, where temperatures reach 280 degrees Fahrenheit and high-speed rotating screws generate intense friction, transforming the mix into a pliable, molten-like mass. Under pressures of up to 300 psi, the dough is forced through a die and instantly puffs upon contact with air, the critical moment that creates Cheetos' signature airy, crunchy texture. Once expanded and crisp, the pieces move into a 25-foot flavoring drum, where hot rice oil and real cheddar cheese powder are sprayed through a high-pressure rotating nozzle system, coating every single snack evenly. Every year, Americans consume nearly 40,000 tons of marshmallows, And during the summer camping season alone, they go through up to 50 million bags to make s'mores by the fire. The marshmallow making process begins in a gelatin hydration tank, then moves into a high-capacity whipping machine, where hot syrup is streamed in while air is incorporated at high speed. Few people realize that marshmallows are 90% air, and it's this ultra-fine microfoam that gives them their signature soft, bouncy texture. Once the mixture reaches the ideal stability, it's no longer poured as a solid block. Instead, it is extruded into long, warm ropes that are still alive. The internal microbubbles continue to expand and settle, giving the ropes elasticity as they puff slightly and self-stabilize right on the conveyor. These marshmallow ropes are extruded onto a bed of fine starch, an edible industrial sand that prevents sticking and keeps the surface dry. After the ropes fully set, they travel to an automatic cutting system where fast-cycling blades slice them into uniform segments. The cutting speed must match the conveyor's movement with absolute precision to ensure each marshmallow is identical in size before it enters the packaging line. Deer antlers are the fastest-growing bone structure on Earth, even faster than the metastasis rate of human cancer cells. Each day, an antler can lengthen by about 2 centimeters, and within just 3 months, its weight can exceed 20 kilograms. Antler growth only begins when maternal growth hormones activate the cells at the base of the frontal bone, initiating the formation of the antler shaft. The harvesting process starts with sedation to maintain physiological stability and prevent stress responses. The antler is removed at the pedicle, the point where connective tissue and bone are clearly separated, minimizing pain. Immediately after cutting, the pedicle is disinfected and covered with a biological seal to stop bleeding, control microorganisms, and stabilize the tissue. Under optimal conditions, a mature deer can yield up to 4 harvests per year. At the processing facility, cleaned velvet antlers undergo thermal treatment to stabilize the tissue and deactivate enzymes. They are then immersed in a specialized biological solution, the key step that preserves protein structures and protects the natural compounds. Once stabilized, the antlers are sliced and dried to reduce moisture, maintain structural integrity, and extend shelf life for several months. Interestingly, New Zealand remains the only country that legally permits large-scale deer farming for industrial antler production. Most antler products used in collagen, nutraceuticals, and regenerative pharmaceuticals in the US, South Korea, and Europe originate from here. Dubbed the Wagyu of the pork world, Jamon Iberico is a rare convergence of genetics, terroir, ecosystem, and time, a true Mediterranean masterpiece. Its journey begins in the Dehesa grasslands of southwestern Spain, where millions of holm and cork oak trees grow naturally spaced across thousands of hectares. Here, Iberico black pigs roam freely, walking tens of kilometers each day to forage for acorns, rich in oleic acid comparable to olive oil, which permeate the meat and form the unique intramuscular fat structure found in no other pig breed. When the Montanera season ends, the hind legs, where intramuscular fat density and muscle fiber architecture are most ideal, enter a transformation lasting more than 900 days. In the first stage, they are coated with pure sea salt at a precise ratio of 30 grams per kilogram of meat, just enough to inhibit harmful bacteria while allowing enzymatic activity to continue. Over 2 weeks at low temperatures, the salt slowly penetrates the meat, reducing moisture and activating natural biochemical reactions. Next, the jamon is moved into traditional curing chambers. No climate control, no humidifiers, relying solely on cold winds, ambient humidity, and native microorganisms. These conditions allow penicillium molds and local microflora to flourish, forming a natural biological rind that both protects the meat and begins unlocking its signature clean, buttery richness. Over the next 2 to 4 years, fats and proteins break down, generating more than 120 aromatic compounds, from chestnut, caramel, and dairy notes to aged oak wood and fermented cheese undertones. This is no mere salted pork. It is a living biochemical transformation, where time, geography, and native microbiology co-create a flavor profile that modern industry simply cannot replicate. These tiny bees, weighing less than 0.1 grams, collectively produce over 1.9 million tons of honey each year for the global food industry. Beekeepers use gentle smoke to interrupt the bees' defensive pheromone signals, reducing their aggression and guiding them away from the comb surface. Once the hive has coined, each honey-filled frame is removed and taken to the processing area. Here, the wax cappings that seal every hexagonal cell are cut away using a heated knife or an automatic uncapping machine. The frames are then placed into an industrial centrifuge. As the drum spins at speeds of up to 400 RPM, centrifugal force pulls the honey out of the wax structure while preserving its enzymes, micronutrients, pollen, and natural microbiome, the true essence of raw honey. The extracted honey then passes through a multi-stage coarse filtration system, where ultra-fine screens remove wax fragments, mechanical impurities, and small bee particles. Notably, the honey is never heated, allowing its enzyme structure and biological activity to remain almost fully intact. And here's a fun fact. When paired with pancakes, honey enhances perceived sweetness by up to 1.7 times, yet adds only about 21 calories per teaspoon. That's why chefs often call honey a natural flavor carrier, a catalyst that makes the notes of butter, pastry, or cheese sharper and deeper than refined sugar or artificial syrups ever could. Deep within the damp, shadowed cliffs of Southeast Asia, swiftlets cling upside down to the cave ceiling, secreting a unique glycoprotein that forms an exceptionally adhesive material, strong enough for their delicate nests to withstand forces up to 30 times their own weight. When the nest completes its natural cycle, typically after 3 months, once the fledglings have left, it is harvested carefully to avoid disrupting the bird's breeding rhythm. Workers detach each nest from the rock surface using only their bare hands, requiring steady control and absolute precision. Most natural birds' nests are incredibly fragile and can crumble with even the slightest touch, turning the harvesting process into a true craft. Inside the processing facility, raw nests, still mixed with feathers, dust, and wood fibers, are softened with clean water and moved to the picking stations. Here, every impurity is removed with tweezers to preserve the original structure of the nest and eliminate all biological contaminants. The crucial qualities that determine purity and texture are then maintained through meticulous shaping, drying, and sterilization under tightly controlled conditions. This refined process is what brings edible bird's nest to Beverly Hills, one of America's most luxurious markets, placing it among the world's most expensive foods, with prices exceeding USD $3,000 per kilogram. In many premium boutiques, high-grade nests even cost 3 times more than saffron or truffles. Modern merino sheep can no longer shed their wool naturally, and without regular shearing, their fleece can swell to 25 kilograms, causing overheating, infections, and severe exhaustion. Shearing, therefore, is not just harvesting. It is essential for the animal's well-being. The wool harvest takes place once a year, typically in early spring. Professional shearers use electric shearing machines with blades curved to match the sheep's body. A skilled shearer can remove the fleece of a sheep in under 2 minutes, keeping the entire coat intact, a single continuous piece known as the fleece. Every movement must be precise. Even one deep cut can downgrade the wool to industrial-grade fiber and wipe out over 60% of its value. After shearing, the fleece is braided based on its position on the body. Wool from the back and sides, the cleanest, finest, and most uniform fibers, is classified as highest-grade apparel wool, destined for Italian suits or ultra-light knitwear. Wool from the belly, legs, and rear, often mixed with lanolin, sweat, and soil, is better suited for carpets, insulation, or acoustic materials. A premium merino fleece may sell for less than $60, but once spun, woven, and finished, its value can exceed $300 for a sweater or $2,000 for a tailored suit. This is why merino wool is considered one of the highest margin materials in the global textile. Among more than 300 cattle breeds worldwide, the intramuscular fat-building process of Wagyu demands stricter biological conditions than any other. This mechanism is precisely what makes Wagyu so expensive. Even a slight rise in cortisol levels can halt fat deposition within the muscle fibers, disrupting the entire marbling cycle and sharply reducing its commercial value. Inside the processing plant, Wagyu is handled under a dedicated protocol designed to preserve marbling quality, with temperature and humidity tightly controlled at every stage, from slaughter to final packaging. The entire workflow must occur at consistently low temperatures to maintain the spiraled fat structure, a unique form of intramuscular fat embedded deep within each fiber rather than sitting as an outer layer. Each cut is inspected and graded based on 3 key metrics: marbling density, firmness, and meltability. As a result, only batches that meet A4 or A5 standards qualify for freezing, chilled cutting, and export, often commanding prices that reach $450 per kilogram, placing Wagyu on the same tier as bluefin tuna and beluga caviar. Once a luxury on dinner plates, oyster shells used to pile up as millions of tons of waste each year. But instead of letting them rot in landfills, people began returning the shells to the sea, where each one forms the foundation for reefs, filters water, and supports entire ecosystems. A remarkable shell turnaround, from waste to a symbol of ocean renewal. Oysters have no brain or central nervous system, but don't underestimate them. Squeeze a lemon on a raw oyster, and the citric acid instantly hits the soft tissue, causing it to twitch or clamp shut in a split second. It's a final biological reflex, a quiet movement that reminds us this seemingly lifeless creature is still alive. Before reaching dining tables or canning lines, oysters undergo a meticulous farming process that begins with the smallest details. To ensure a steady supply of seed and consistent quality, many farms now rely on artificial breeding instead of seasonal natural reproduction. Healthy broodstock oysters are carefully selected and raised in tanks with tightly controlled temperature and salinity, simulating year-round spawning conditions rather than being limited to the natural breeding season from June to August. Once fertilized, the eggs are incubated in 400 to 500-liter tanks containing millions of free-swimming larvae. This early stage is highly sensitive. The larvae are fed fresh microalgae, cultivated separately under strict quality control. Throughout this process, the tank water must be continuously filtered and regularly tested to eliminate harmful bacteria, ensuring healthy, uniform larval development, the foundation for high-quality oysters in the final product. When the larvae reach the stage where they are ready to attach to a fixed surface, they are transferred to specialized setting tanks. Here, crushed oyster shells are spread on mesh or hard surfaces to provide a suitable substrate for attachment. The juvenile oysters secrete a natural adhesive to anchor themselves in place, marking the beginning of a rapid growth phase. After about 2 to 3 weeks, once the spat reach a size of 0.75 millimeters to 2 millimeters, they are screened to remove weak or underdeveloped individuals, keeping only those with uniform size. At this stage, the young oysters are strong enough to withstand natural marine conditions and are ready to be transferred to outdoor grow-out areas. When oysters reach a size of around 4 to 5 millimeters, they are transferred to the ocean environment for further growth. At this stage, farms typically use two main cultivation methods: suspended bag culture and bottom culture. In the suspended bag method, oysters are placed in specialized mesh bags attached to metal racks or hanging lines on the water's surface. These bags come in various mesh sizes, ranging from 0.5 to 2 inches, designed to protect the oysters from predators while allowing continuous water flow to deliver natural food like phytoplankton. As the oysters grow, they are moved into bags with larger mesh sizes to ensure adequate space for development. In bottom culture, oysters are released directly onto sandy or muddy seabeds. This method results in thicker shells and a richer flavor due to direct contact with the ocean floor. However, it requires a longer grow-out period and regular monitoring to prevent loss and minimize the impact of natural environmental changes. After about 12 to 24 months, depending on environmental conditions and oyster species, oysters reach market size, typically between 5 to 7 centimeters, and are ready for harvest. By this stage, they have developed strong shells, plump meat, and their distinct flavor profile. Oyster farming goes beyond simply providing a suitable environment. It also involves essential care techniques, such as flipping the mesh bags, conducting regular inspections, and adjusting stocking density. All of these factors play a crucial role in determining the final quality of the oysters delivered to consumers. Each early morning, as the sea remains calm, fishing boats head out, cutting through the waves. Along floating farms near the coast, farmers work busily to harvest oysters, mollusks that grow silently, clinging tightly to submerged structures in the salty water. Unlike fish or shrimp, harvesting oysters requires patience and a solid understanding of their biology. Depending on the species and salinity levels, farms must wait 18 to 36 months before oysters are ready to harvest. Harvesting methods vary by farming model. In the floating rack and bag system, oysters are grown in mesh bags suspended from frames with 50 to 100 oysters per bag. When harvest time arrives, workers use pulleys to lift the bags onto the boat, a quick and efficient process that preserves freshness. In bottom culture or wild harvesting, oysters are collected using dredging nets that scrape along the seafloor. While this method yields a high volume, it can easily mix in mud and damage shells if not handled carefully. Oysters are highly sensitive to temperature shock and physical impact, so every step from harvest to processing must be strictly controlled in terms of time, temperature, and humidity. Once brought ashore, oysters still retain seawater inside their shells, as if carrying the ocean with them, preserving their freshness to the last drop. After harvesting, oysters must be cleaned immediately to remove mud, algae, and small organisms attached to their shells, ensuring quality before moving on to the next stage. The cleaning process involves multiple steps, combining automated systems with manual handling for optimal effectiveness. First, the oysters are passed through a series of recirculating water tanks with continuous or wave-like water flow, which gently loosens mud and debris without damaging the shells. In some systems, these tanks are equipped with filtration screens to remove impurities and keep the water clean throughout the washing process. Next, the oysters enter a specialized washing system, where high-pressure spray nozzles combined with rotating drums remove any remaining stubborn residue. Under the force of pressurized seawater or clean freshwater, the oysters are thoroughly cleaned from all angles, leaving the shell surfaces free of contaminants before proceeding to the next step. Once the washing process is complete, the oysters are transferred to an automated grading system. Here, vibrating conveyors sort the oysters accurately by shell size, ensuring product uniformity. In more advanced processing lines, optical sorting machines are also used. These systems employ sensors and imaging technology to inspect shell color, shape, and detect abnormalities, such as cracks or signs of poor quality. Oysters that do not meet the required standards are manually removed by workers, ensuring that only top-quality oysters move forward. After grading, the selected oysters are placed into specialized containers with drainage holes to prevent water accumulation and maintain optimal conditions for the oysters to stay alive and healthy. Thanks to a modern cleaning and grading process that combines technology with manual handling, the oysters are not only clean, but also consistently high in quality before moving on to storage and transportation. After grading, oysters are processed in two main ways: kept in shell or fully shucked, each method serving different processing purposes. For in-shell processing, workers gently pry open or slightly separate the top shell while keeping the meat and natural seawater inside intact. This method preserves freshness and flavor and is commonly used for live oyster distribution, especially to high-end restaurants where appearance and integrity are essential. After processing, the oysters are placed on ice trays to maintain freshness and keep them alive during transport. In contrast, full shell removal is used for further processed products such as fresh shucked meat, frozen oysters, or canned goods. Despite advances in technology, much of this process is still done by hand, as oyster shells are sharp, rough, and tricky to handle. Skilled workers can shuck up to 1,000 oysters per hour while keeping the meat perfectly intact. The oyster meat is then washed with high-pressure water to remove sand and shell fragments, and in some facilities, it is sanitized using ozone or diluted brine, extending shelf life without compromising texture or requiring chemical preservatives. Once the oysters have been thoroughly washed and sterilized, they are moved to a rapid cooling zone. In this area, workers spread ice over trays of oysters to instantly reduce the temperature, preserving freshness and preventing bacterial growth while awaiting packaging. This step is essential for stabilizing the meat quality before further processing or long-term storage. For canned products, workers carefully place batches of oysters into food-grade coated aluminum cans. Each can is precisely measured by quantity or weight, then transferred via conveyor to an automated sealing system. For canned products, workers place batches of oysters into food-grade coated aluminum cans. Each can is accurately portioned by quantity or weight, then filled with a light brine or a specially formulated sauce to enhance flavor and aid in preservation. Next, the cans are conveyed along a production line to an automatic sealing machine. At this stage, the cans are hermetically sealed using high mechanical pressure to prevent any air from entering. Immediately after, the oyster cans are sterilized in steam chambers at 115 to 121 degrees Celsius for a specific duration to eliminate bacteria and extend shelf life without the need for preservatives. Finally, the cans are rapidly cooled, labeled, and boxed, ready for domestic distribution or export. In addition to fresh and canned products, a portion of the oysters is transferred to a cold air drying line, where cool air is continuously circulated around the oysters to evaporate moisture without altering the structure of the meat. In addition to fresh and canned products, a portion of the oysters is transferred to a cold air drying line, where cool air continuously circulates around them to evaporate surface moisture without altering the meat's structure, preserving both flavor and nutritional value. Next, the oysters undergo a second cold drying stage at a lower temperature and for a longer duration. This process further reduces internal moisture, achieving an optimal dryness level for long-term storage without the need for additives. Once drying is complete, the oysters are cooled to stabilize their temperature, then tested for moisture levels. Workers weigh and portion each batch, place them into bags, and immediately vacuum seal them. This step helps prevent oxidation, limits moisture reabsorption, and extends shelf life.